I'm Andy, the guy behind the camera, and welcome to Becca's tutorial on embroidery. Tonight's episode is about the running stitch, so without further ado, here is Becca.
Hi, I'm Becca. I'm going to show you today how to do a running stitch in embroidery. It's probably the most easy, basic one to start with. You need a few things to start out. I have thread. There's a couple kinds of embroidery thread. Pick whatever your favorite one is, really. Like these kind of generic cross-stitch floss or embroidery floss. I like to use pearl cotton, which comes in little balls like this. You'll need a pair of scissors. I'm using felt. I think felt is a fantastic fabric to start on because it's really easy to keep your stitch tension very even. You can go on to using thinner, flimsier fabrics, but I always recommend start on felt because I think it's great. And then last, you can see my little embroidery needle, and I'll give you a close-up of this. I like embroidery needles, but really any kind of needle will work. Embroidery needles have the added bonus of having a really big eye, so they're easy to thread, easy to work with. So we are ready to get started. First, you need to cut a piece of thread. I recommend that your thread isn't more than about 14 or 16 inches long to start out with. Yes, you will need to cut more pieces of thread, but if it's a small piece to start, it doesn't get tangled up as easy and you won't get so frustrated. And then threading your needle. This is probably the hardest part for everybody who's beginning with embroidery. I try not to spit on the thread, then you just have slobbery thread for the whole time you're stitching. Okay, needle is threaded, then you need to tie a knot in the other end of your thread. And the easiest kind of knot is just an overhand. Overhand knot, you make a loop around your finger, and we'll do a close-up of this too. And then stuff that little end right through. So now I have a knot in the end. Then, the running stitch. First thing, start with your needle, the back of your fabric. Choose whichever side is your back side, and wherever you want to start. Poke it through, and then pull it all the way until your thread stops at that knot. Then, running stitch. Running stitch is the really basic up, down, or over, under stitch. You want to practice your running stitch a little bit until you can get nice small stitches and even stitches. The next fancy variation I'll show you on this is really nice if you have small even stitches. So my favorite way to do the running stitch keeps the needle on top of the fabric all the time. So you poke the point of the needle down and up, down, and up, down, and up. Notice I haven't pulled it through yet. I'm collecting all of those stitches on the needle. Once I've got 3 or 4 stitches, nice small even ones, then I grab the end of the needle and pull it through just until it stops. You don't want to crinkle up the fabric, just keep it nice and smooth. You can smooth it out with your thumb. And there's a little start of running stitches. I'm going to keep going so I have a long row of running stitches all the way across. Okay, I've got like 3 more stitches to go. Alright, now to end, I want to make my last stitch so I'm going back down through so I'm the back of the fabric again. Okay, so there's the finished ones on the front. Now I'm going to flip it over so I'm on the back so I can tie a knot. You want to have a knot in this end too. My favorite easy way to do a knot is to go back to the last stitch you see on this back side. Slide your needle underneath it and pull so you've got a loop of thread. Now put your needle through the loop once, through the loop again, and pull that tight. And now you've got a knot in the back, and you can trim it off, leaving a little tail end. So there's a basic running stitch. So now that we have the start of running stitch, we're going to go on and do some variations. All of these are going to start with a basic line of running stitch. So you can do that to start out with, which you already have learned how to do. The next one we're going to do is called a threaded running stitch, and this is just a fancy variation. You can use different colors. It looks kind of fun. So I'm going to use a little bit lighter pink thread, cut about the same length as you did before, about 14 or 16 inches, and thread your needle. Okay, and tie a knot in the end again. Okay. Now to start this one, we're going to start the same way we did, which is to bring your needle from the back up through the front. We want to sort of hide this one. So what I do, and we'll show you a close-up of this, is I bring my needle up kind of behind the very first stitch and sort of hide where it's coming out. And you'll pull that all the way through till it stops at the knot. Now, the rest of the stitch, you're not actually going to go through this back fabric. All you're going to do is go underneath those stitches that you made. So, the first one, you're going to go from right to left. You slide your needle underneath that stitch. You don't go into the fabric at all. And then pull that through. And you're going to leave a little loop. Next one, you're going to go the opposite way through the next stitch. So that one, you'll slide your needle from left to right under the thread, not catching the fabric, and pull until you have a little loop. The trick to this one, of course, is not pulling your loops too tight. I'm going to keep going, alternating right to left to right, making that nice wavy line. Okay, on the last stitch, you do kind of what you did with the first stitch, which is hide that end underneath. So I'm going to poke my needle down right underneath that other thread at the running stitch, pull it all the way through, and that will finish off my last loop. And then, same way we did, flip it over,